Okay, so Jean Fallaize, director, writer, producer. Are you ready for extreme question time with yours truly?
Yeah, go on then.
Yeah. What made you want to become a director?
I didn't want to become a director. I started in radio. Everything that I did at school, I wanted to be a radio presenter. And that was all I wanted to be. And everything I did was kind of with that in mind. Started in hospital radio, worked my way up through local radio, commercial radio, worked at the BBC, and got to a point where I'd done what I wanted to and was really happy with that. And then I got presented an opportunity. Do you fancy working in television? A friend of mine worked in TV and said, do you want to come and help out? And I said, don't know the first thing about TV. Wouldn't even know where to start. I said, that'll be fine. It's like a radio studio, but you've got an extra level of vision. And that was it. And so I thought, well, I've always been a kind of person that I never want to turn an opportunity down. I'd always rather take an opportunity, and if I fuck it up, then so be it. But I thought, well, you'll never know otherwise. So I thought I'll give it a go, and did it, and was all right, and so carried on doing it. For a little while I did radio and TV together, and then ended up kind of shedding the radio side and focusing purely on television. And then the same thing happened again, whereas I got an opportunity to work in film as a producer. Never produced in film in my life, didn't know what it entailed. And then it was, do you fancy doing this? Yeah, okay, let's give it a go. And pretty much had to blag my way through the entire thing. And then did it, managed to get through the first one, and then kept doing it. And as I was doing it, I was learning more and more about how to actually produce, like for real. And that was it. And then I was happy producing. And one thing I said I would never wanted to do was direct, because I didn't want to work with actors, because actors are a pain. I didn't realise it's not actors that are the pain, it's their agents and things like that. Actors are actually great, and I've realised that's probably my favourite thing to do, is work with actors. And so this opportunity came up for this Superman film through Warner Brothers, and I thought, well, if anyone's going to do it, if anyone's going to tell this story, I could just produce it, or I could do the whole thing. I didn't know if I was going to direct. I certainly didn't know if I was going to be any good at it, but I thought, do it about something that I'm going to have at least a vague interest in. So thought, well, I'll try it. I did it. And from that moment, I loved it. And ever since then, it's about doing less and less producing and just focusing on directing, really. So that's the long answer to a short question.
Directing is difficult. How do you handle self-doubt, and what motivates you on tough days?
I think I use self-doubt as a driver, because I think it took me a long time to realise that everybody has it. Like, we work in an industry where image is everything, and everyone seems confident. Everyone seems like they know what they're doing. They're the best at it, and you're the weak link. You're going to get found out for being a fake. Everyone has down moments, negative moments, where you question yourself and your abilities. And really, it's just about, lifting and doing what you can, reminding everyone that there is no real guidebook for this, that the very best people in the industry didn't go to film school, didn't learn it from any places. It's a case of doing it and refining it and just keep going and get better each time.
What's the best advice you've ever been given, and what advice would you give your younger self, knowing what you know now?
I've been given so much good advice over the years. It's actually really hard to pick a single thing. None of us just landed in this. None of us were born to do this. It's an industry you have to carve your way through. And I don't think anybody ever gets there on their own. It's all bits of different advice from different places. And some can just be just random sentences, just off the cuff bits that stick the most. And trying to think of an individual example is really hard. Probably is just never ever give up. And it's such a simple one, but it's so true, because it's the one thing that I think everyone at some point or another thinks, you know what, I can't be asked for this. Let's do something else. It'd be easier to do something else. And that's always the thing. Nothing memorable, nothing that's going to last is ever easy, ever.
Moving into a very positive question. Okay. What's your proudest professional moment?
There's a few. It's usually at the end of a project. Inevitably, that's when you feel at your best. You've achieved something. You have a product that you hope is going to outlive you. And I think towards the end of each of those, because you've got something you're reasonably happy with, as a director, I don't know any directors that are like, yes, that's perfect. You're not. You see the problems, whilst everyone else is reasonably happy with it, you're the one most critical. And I think that's a good way to be. If you get to a point where you're just like, yes, that's perfect, you should probably step away at that point.
Yeah.
But I think my proudest moments are usually not premieres themselves. It's often cast and crew screenings, and we had one for Control.
I immediately thought of that.
And there was what, 6 or 8 of us there? Mm-hmm. That was it. And being able to show you guys what we collectively come up with, because I was very cautious. I wanted to not show off cuts and things before that, because you kind of become numb to it. You kind of see it rough, and then it just gets polished and polished. So you don't really appreciate the change. Yeah. So I kind of wanted to kind of keep it close to be able to show you guys a very, very nearly finished thing. And that, I'd say, is probably up there with some of my proudest moments, because I was able to show you it and you guys were pleased with what we'd come up with. And that, I couldn't have asked for more. You know, if you'd have gone, oh, actually, could probably, here's some notes, then I would have been quite...
genuinely a nice moment though, wasn't it?
It was.
Genuinely, like our reaction, it was quite emotional, because we'd been through a lot, hadn't we, to get to that point. And like, probably for you, seeing our reaction and the emotion, it's like, that's probably a really fucking nice feeling. Like
it is, and up until that point, I'd say that was more tense for me than the premiere, even though there was literally hundreds less people. When it was just us, it was the one that meant more, because if you guys would have been disappointed, that would have changed everything. Yeah. Whereas that kind of gave me the confidence to go, no, if you guys are happy, we've done our best. Yeah. Is it perfect? No. Did we go into it knowing it was going to be perfect? No, we did not think going into this is going to be Oscar-winning material. So you kind of know what your limit of what you can achieve with a certain budget, with taking everything into consideration. Yeah. I think we kind of maxed out on what we could have got out of that. Yeah. If I can do something that means that my name will live on freshly, because in that moment, you know, it's clean, it's crisp, it's not a faded tombstone. It's there for as long as someone presses play, and that for me is my core reason, I guess, to entertain and not die.
Yeah, it's morbidly nice.
Morbidly nice. My nickname,
isn't it? Yeah. You did ask if anyone had any questions.
I did.
You did reach out to see if anyone wanted you to ask anything. So we've got a question from Joe Hind.
Yep.
He says, I want to break into screenwriting. I've got an idea for a 6-part anthology, but I don't know where to go with it. Any top tips on getting things moving or picked up?
If you've got an idea, just write it. It doesn't matter what it's like. You're not going to come out with a first draft that's amazing, ever. Like, nobody does. Just write it down. You can then polish it, rewrite it. Writing is rewriting. And that's a key piece of advice that I heard years ago, and I don't even know where it came from, but it's so true in that that's what it's about. It's about just keep going, keep polishing, keep perfecting, keep writing. Once you've got that down, then you can start to talk to other people about it. Then you can look to pitch it and you can get people interested. A good project, I believe, will always get found, because just by talking to people, if you've got something that makes people go, oh, I want to know more, that's enough. If people hear a bit and are just a bit indifferent, most people are probably going to be like that. So it's a case of, whatever your idea is, if you believe in it, get it down. It doesn't matter what it's like. It doesn't matter if the draft's horrible. You can always get another writer in to rewrite. You can do whatever, but get it down. Get something started. Then it gives a base point for people to be interested in. That's how you start.
Also have a question from Julian Erksmeyer. Do you think the path to getting noticed has changed since you started out? And if so, how much?
Yes, it's changed massively, because I'm the generation that was there. We discovered the internet. Not like it was there to be found under a rock, but I mean, like, it didn't exist when I was at school. And when I was at school, it wasn't until secondary school there was a computer, and it was a computer that had to be shared. So our IT lessons were ridiculous. It was just like 20 kids huddled over one computer, as one person got to use a 3-button mouse that was unbelievable.
Same.
Yeah. And it's like, So how things were then compared to now, where it's the exact opposite way. Like, you've got influencers who just appear almost overnight. Like, they're never used the term overnight success has always existed, but it was never a true thing. It was, you'd work for years, hard work and effort, until you got the thing in which people noticed you. Now you can genuinely be an overnight success. You can just have one video that goes viral, and that's it. Everything changes. So has it changed? In every way possible, because so many actors now are influencers. They'll get noticed, and then they'll move into acting. And you've got real actors, and I do mean that in that way, in that they are real actors. They have done training that I've got to compete with that. And you have the same as well with directors, where you have directors that have really put in the effort, put in the work to learn the craft, and there is so much to it. It's not just sitting and shouting action. That when you get other people, and often actors, real actors, that think, that looks cool, I want to be the other side of the camera. And I heard of one very, very, very notable actress recently who directed her first film, took it to Cannes, and actually really, it really bothered me, because she was asked a question. It was like, you know, how is directing? How did you find directing? She said, oh, it's the easiest thing in the world. Like, you just literally get to just sit down and call action. Because what would happen there is, because she was at such a level, she had a team around her. Basically, her ADs and everything else directed the film for her. They did all the hard work of shot lists and everything else, and all of the actual work that goes into it, understanding the craft of storytelling and the technical side as well, which you need to have at least some basic knowledge of. She didn't kind of have any of that, so she was able to just sit and go, yeah, action, cut, seems all right, move on. Yeah, okay, that's easier. That's like saying I could be a dentist because I could put a drill in someone's mouth.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
I couldn't do the actual work required. And that, I think, is so much of that. And again, that's the thing that kind of didn't exist 20 years ago even. There weren't as many actors turning into directors. There weren't as many influencers turning into actors. So the whole landscape has changed, not just of the industry, because arguably that's two completely separate industries. You know, the whole social and influencer side is a separate thing that's kind of merging in. You know, it's like two galaxies colliding. They're eventually going to become one mixed bag. So I don't think it could be any different to how it was when I first started. Yeah. So yes, it's incredibly hard to get into, always has been.
How do you prepare for directing, and how much detail do you go into?
I enjoy the process, and I'm quite proud of how much prep I do, because I know other directors that are able to just go on set completely blind, usually if they've got more time and more money than I'm usually blessed with, where they just figure it out. That sounds lovely to me, but that's about as dreamlike to me as going on a 2-week holiday and doing nothing. The reality is I get 5 minutes in and then get itchy feet and need to entertain myself for 2 weeks. Yeah. That's how I am with directing, in that the idea of being able to just have the freedom to just feel it out and go with it sounds nice, but actually it would completely, I'd implode. I wouldn't be able to do that. Yeah. I like the process of knowing what I'm going to do, because for me, I like to go into enough detail essentially that I can watch the film in my head long before anybody else ever would, long before we even start filming, because for me it's what I aspire to. Because if you can come out with something fairly good or fairly close to that, then I'd be very, very happy. Like the one we're working on now, I know it. I've watched this film so many times in my head. All I need to do is get it out, basically. First of all, I got it on the page, and now we need to get it out practically. That's it. The fun part for me then, and I can enjoy it, is finding the bits in between. If we can come out with just what I imagine, I'll be very happy with it.
How do you keep calm on set when things get stressful? He doesn't.
I throw things, get angry. Yeah. I think experience helps, in that dealing with most situations, you can kind of see how it's going to play out, or at least have a plan. And I think it's just not absolutely losing it. It's just a case of, okay, whatever's going on, accept it and try and deal with it from there, try and adapt. And I don't think I'm particularly stressy on set. Yes, you can have times where you're up against the clock and things, but really it's just a case of working with your AD and the rest of your team, really, and just getting through it. I've not really experienced many situations where I've been truly unhappy or angry on set, and if there are, you've got to deal with them. There's one example was probably in my first week of directing anything, and my first thing I ever directed was a feature. I thought, I'm not going to go in. If I'm going to do this, I might only end up doing it once, so I'm just going to go all in and do it. So I did a feature. That was quite a notable feature as well, so I didn't make it easy for myself. And the AD on that, the assistant director, I'd done quite a bit before, and he was aware that I hadn't directed before. But still, you've got to have a vision as director, and that needs to be what goes. You are the vessel for everything, and he just wanted to direct. Basically, he was an aspiring director, and just kind of decided to go over my head, contradict, and this was over the course of like a day, a morning even, and then I came in at one point, I was chatting to another actor, and another actor called me out and said, look, I just want to talk to you about this. So I said, yeah, everyone went fine for a minute. Went and spoke to them, came back out, and there was a take happening, and that's like an absolute sin. Like nobody else ever takes on set as a director. And so literally I said at that point, that can never happen again. And it just, over the course of about maybe the next hour, it just continued to, it didn't change, basically. Didn't do another take, but was just very much the same kind of way. So I spoke to my producer, and we had to make the call there and then, this guy's got to go. Yeah. And it wasn't a case of losing rags or anything like that. It was, let me just take you to one side. This clearly isn't working for anyone, you or us, so we're going to have to call this a day.
How do you communicate with actors during emotional scenes?
I think it depends on the scene. It depends what it is, but I think it's about trust, being there for them and letting them know that you're there, because it's a vulnerable thing for actors to do. And I think actors can sometimes feel, well, they do feel very vulnerable, but sometimes quite silly, because you're in an environment where everyone is stood around you, inevitably looking at you, because they're not really staring at you like a monkey in a cage, which is how it feels. But what else are you going to look at when all the lights and all the cameras and everyone else is pointing towards the subject? It's weird if you then turn and face the wall. Like, of course you're going to look in that direction. Yeah. But it can also be, reasonably intimidating for actors. They're used to it normally, but when you've got to open yourself up and cry, first of all, you've got the pressure of being emotional. Like, what if I can't? What if it doesn't come? What if I don't feel it? But then you've got everything else of potentially feeling all sorts of different ways. So for me, it's about being close to the actor. Don't disappear into Video Village or things like that, or behind the camera. Make sure they can see you the entire time and know that you're there for them. And especially if there's raw emotion involved, I like to leave them at the last possible moment before I shout action and get in there straight away, just to know that I'm there for them. I'll often put a hand on their shoulder or something like that. Just, it's building that trust. You're okay. I'm here for you, and I'm the bubble at that point. I'm there to protect them from everything else, every other distraction on set, everyone else that's there, making noises, banging and clattering. They've got to stay there. I'm that person to keep them in that zone and know they can trust it, so that 20 seconds later, when all of a sudden everyone's gone quiet and waiting for them, it's not suddenly like, come on, we're waiting on your emotion now. It's keeping them in there. So emotion is a hard thing to manage on set, and the last thing you need at that point is a director dicking about because he's high on Apple Pencils. Yeah. It's making sure that you judge the mood and you set the mood. It's your job to make sure that everyone's in the right mindset. If you've got a really quiet scene, you don't want everyone shouting and screaming beforehand. It's about keeping it down. Same the other way. If you've got something that needs to be light, you can't be the one mumbling about because you need a coffee or whatever. You've got to be the one, and if you can't, you have to find ways to make sure you set the scene. And ultimately, at that point, you've got to be the best actor on the stage. No, you started laughing. I thought, we are laughing.
How do you decide when you've got the take?
instinct. Nothing but instinct for me is you kind of know. I think that's the answer to all directing. If that was a clear-cut answer, pretty much anybody could be a director. It's about knowing what you want to begin with, really, and that is all down to the prep. If you watch it and you have done no prep, I don't know how you'd know if you've got it. The only way to know you've got it is have it playing in your head, and when your comparison take gets close to, or even better, exceeds that one, then you've got it. But until then, you're just like, that's not quite right. I saw it as this. That's what you're aspiring to what's in your head. And I think that's everything. If it matches what you've been imagining for 2 years as you've been building this project, then you go, yeah, okay, that's great. When I was at school, there was a quote in Latin in my geography class. And it was nil satis nisi optimum. And I've remembered it throughout my life. And it just means nothing satisfies but your best. And that has always stuck with me.
Yeah.
I kind of hated it through school because I didn't want to give my best. So it was taunting me. Whereas as an adult, it's done the opposite. It's something I strive towards, because if I can genuinely say I've done my best and I believe everyone else has done their best.
What's your approach to working with the DP? Who leads what? How does that work?
I think it depends on the DP, the director and DP. It's a symbiotic relationship. You've got to be on the same page. And I've worked with DPs where I'm very much not on the same page, and it's like drawing blood from a stone. But it's just like working with actors, really, in that you've both got a creative idea. They have an idea of what you're trying to achieve. Your job is to make sure that it's the same as what you're trying to achieve, that you're in sync. And I think it can be a relationship that can be awful if you get it wrong, and amazing if you get it right. And I've been unfortunate and fortunate enough to have experienced both. When you get it right, it's just the best feeling, because you just feel so free in that you can have a shorthand to just say, this is what I want or what I need, and you're on it. Like, that is the best feeling. It's the same as with cast. If you have that and they get it straight away, great. But that's not always the case, and you have to give closer and closer and closer direction. And it can mean that you look at it, you'll do a take, and everything else is fine, but you're just not happy with the way it looks. Then you've got to keep going through that.
Yeah.
So it's one of those relationships that depends on the people so much, and how they communicate, how they get on, really what their own interests are. If you've got a DP that's very much used to like a John Woo style or something like that's a very, very engaged style, and you want something very different, well, that's probably not necessarily going to work. You've got to choose someone who either gets that or is at least able to adapt to that. You probably wouldn't get John Williams to score a film like Face Off or something like that. It wouldn't necessarily work. And it's the same with cinematography. It has to work for the product you want. If you've got somebody who's into long, dreamy shots and you're doing a Fast and the Furious, they're probably going to be wasted there. Yeah. Same the other way around. If they're only used to like a Fast and the Furious type thing, and you want this big, Hollywood landscape type thing, again, it's you've either got to find someone that gets it or is adaptable enough to be able to go to that.
What's the most underrated skill a director needs?
Patience.
That'll do.
There you go. You said you wanted quick.
I like
My
it,
other quick answers weren't quick.
I'm testing you ready for the quick fire answers.
Okay.
I'm getting you in preparation.
Okay.
For that
my quick answers are gradually getting quicker.
Get
So
what makes a shot cinematic, in your opinion?
Oh, that's hard. I think something that's layered, something that's got depth, that's got life to it. There's so many shots that I can think of that should be cinematic that aren't, that feel a bit flat. There's just not enough there. The easy answer to that would be, some big panning landscape shot. That looks cinematic, but that's easy to make look cinematic. Yeah. The difficulty is making the mundane look cinematic. And really, for me, I like a shallow focus, a vignette, things like that make it look better. There's a film I watched recently that was the opposite to that. I don't recall many films that I've seen lately, even that are digital, that don't use any vignette. And it was kind of odd because it was flat. It looked like it had been wallpapered onto the screen.
Yeah.
And that, for me, was just a waste because I think, it wouldn't take a lot to make this look so much better. And that's why I'll add noise. I think a bit of, even if it's digital noise, still makes it feel a little bit more real and dynamic than just flat.
What's your view on using storyboards versus intuition?
As you know, I'm a fan of storyboards because you're still using your intuition. It's still there, and it's like the script. It's a drawn script. It doesn't mean you have to go by it. It sounds like I can look at any part of the script and go, I don't want to do that bit, or I want to change that bit. I don't like that bit. You don't have to do it just because it's there. Storyboards are just another level of preparation to help you, as a director, share your vision with everyone else, because it's all good and well having it here, but you've got to communicate that to everyone else, whether that's cast, crew, investors, distributors. Everyone ultimately needs to see what the hell you're thinking, or have some good idea of it. So having storyboards is as much for everyone else as it is for you. It doesn't take away any creativity at all, because they're done in conjunction with you anyway. So it's about showing everyone else, because so many times before we do a scene, I can refer to storyboards and say, this is what we're aiming for. If we come out with something different, hopefully better, as always, if you can get an extra 5%, great.
Do you design shots around emotion or composition first?
I don't think consciously that I do either. I just try and watch the scene in my head. So when I'm doing my shot list, so storyboards start from a shot list in that I will, once we've got the script down, I will then try and watch the film in my head as I'm reading it. And I cut it in the way that I would see it if I were watching someone else's film. So if I were watching it and it was a Spielberg film or something like that, or any kind of mainstream film, I imagine how it would be cut that way. So I will look, I think they'd probably cut to a close-up here, or a mid, or a two-shot, or a wide. And I will just literally do it that way. That's how I shot list, is how I imagine I will be cutting it. And I will give myself those options. For me, just watching it in my head, how I see it being. And so the composition and everything else kind of comes as a result of that. It's kind of the other way around. I don't know if that's the right way or wrong way. Maybe you should do it composition-based first or emotion-based first. I just kind of try and watch it as a finished film and work backwards.
What's your favourite camera move?
I right to left dolly.
Oh, specifically right to left, not left
Specifically,
to right.
No, and I don't know why, but when I'm shortlisting or things like that, I always do right to left. I much prefer it right to left. I don't know if it's because I'm left-handed, but I'm predominantly right-handed. Bizarre. But I always prefer it that way. The other way always feels a little bit like I don't like it. It's just a preference. So I actually have to force myself to do left to right sometimes just to mix it up, because otherwise it'll look too, we only go one way.
It's more visually pleasing for you.
I like it that way, yeah. If it's the other way, I always think it's a bit shit that way.
Yeah. Oh, he went left to right. Ooh.
Yeah. I judge every other filmmaker. Ooh, a left to right. Ooh.
Ew. That's not right. That's left. I don't know what I like. What visual cliches do you avoid, or do you even avoid them?
I probably don't avoid them. No. I probably buy into every one of them.
Yeah.
In-camera zooms are always kind of like, they're a difficult one because you can kind of want to do them so much, but they kind of fell out of fashion certainly after the 70s and then towards the 80s, and then they kind of popped back in the 90s for certain things, and then they died. Like, you just don't do them unless you're doing something, period. And the one at the minute, I've kind of had to consciously add those in, and it's quite fun to do so, to kind of think of those kind of like A-Team and Murder, She Wrote in-camera zooms, because, you know, dollies do just look better, but for what you're going for, it can be quite cool, but you could never just get away with doing those now. So it's not a cliche as such, but it's something that's fallen out of fashion that you need to kind of make sure that you don't do, because yes, it could be easier sometimes, but it's just like, just don't do that.
Okay, quickly, think
Go
fast.
Go on.
I had nothing to say to you then.
I was thinking really fast as well.
I was thinking fast and I couldn't think fast enough. Okay, so we're going to go into writing and storytelling.
Okay.
Where do your story ideas usually come from?
Oh, anywhere. I don't know. They can come from all sorts of different places. With Control, it was just an idea as to what would happen. I read a news article about the cars being used like the self-summon feature, and I thought, wow, that's cool. That's like Batman. That was it. That the whole film came from there. Another one I wrote literally came from a painting. I thought, I like that. I want to see more of that world. It can come from so many different places, and I think the point is it's something that excites me. If it interests me and I want to know more, I'd watch a film about that. That's where my inspiration comes from, really.
How do you create believable characters when you're writing?
I don't know if I do create believable characters. I like to think so, and I try to. I think it's trying to... when you first do a draft, everyone kind of has the same voice. They don't... And it's your voice. And what I try and do then is I'll go through a draft with just focusing on one character and try and think from an actor's point of view and give them a bit of something. I'll think of a bit of backstory, or I'll think of an accent that won't come through in the script, but so I can give them a voice of their own and make sure that it's one connective tissue that runs through that character in one, and then I'll try and do a different character for someone else. And really that's just about going back through it, because when you're first writing, you're kind of, if you were in a flowing of a scene, this person says this person says that, you're kind of tennising it back and forth, but it's kind of your own bipolar brain writing one story, just separating the dialogue between two things.
Yeah.
So it's just a case of going back to it and making sure that it sounds like a real person rather than a character. And that's why I generally don't like the word character so much, because that's in itself is a fabrication.
Yeah.
Whereas I prefer a person.
Do you find yourself writing characters based on people that you know, personalities that you know, or people you meet in daily life? Does that inspire character writing?
I don't think so. Probably subconsciously somewhere inside there's something. Like how that thing is that you can never dream about a face that you've never seen.
Yeah.
Every face in your dream is it could be someone you've seen on the street, but your dream mind can't invent a new face. I guess there's an element of that in it, in that everyone you're writing probably has lineage from somewhere, some experience, but none that I can think of intentionally. Usually it's someone that I can't put my finger on. I'll have an idea of what this character is or looks like or sounds like, but certainly initially at least I don't really know. It's like someone has phoned me out of the blue, a stranger, and I'm speaking to them. That's kind of how disconnected it feels until through rewrites, I learn more about the character and who they are.
Well, often when I'm watching a film, if I sometimes think a female wrote those lines for those males, you can tell, because guys don't talk like that, and vice versa. Sometimes you're like, a guy wrote those lines for females, you can tell, because it's not how women talk. So how do you write female characters as a male writer?
I think I'm in quite a lucky position in that I can hang around with guys and do guy things, but I'm equally as comfortable in the presence of and talking to women, and I kind of fit in a middle ground, and so it's something that I do take a bit of pride in that I probably write female characters better than I write male characters in a sense, in that my male characters often are a bit more feely and needy than some might write characters. I don't tend not to write like very John McClane macho man characters because really that's not me. So I can't write, it's about writing what you know. So I kind of sit in a comfortable middle there. So it's a case of just kind of in a way that actors do, kind of get into character and write as I think that they would act.
Yeah.
And again, I think there's a level of acting involved there, and just the ability to pretend to be someone else, I guess. And I can do that reasonably well, but I'll also seek advice and coverage, like what do you think about this? Does this sound natural and things like that? So It's if you were to just be one writer, write one script, never confer with anyone else, they may sound a bit more like me. But I think, like everything else, it's about absorbing opinions, information. Does this sound natural, real, things like that? Let's say, luckily, I tend not to need much in terms of female. Say, if anything, it'd be the males. I'd need to match her up a little bit.
Do you write with specific actors in mind, either visually or verbally, kind of?
I try not to, because for me it's a bit like temp scoring, in that if you do that, you can write perfectly for this particular actor. The chance of you getting that particular actor, and that can be down to many things: money, availability, just desire to do it or not. Chance of you getting that actor are slim to none, no matter really what level you're at. And then you're setting yourself up for disappointment. So I try not to. Inevitably, there's some that will kind of seep in there. I think more like a Judi Dench type, for example. You'll kind of go that way, but not making it Judi Dench, if that makes sense. Kind of lean in that direction, but be prepared to have some flexibility there. I'll do that to a point, but I try not to too much, because I say you're honing the character too much, and you're also not giving actors anywhere to go with it. You're not giving yourself anywhere to go with it. A character still needs to be fairly fluid and malleable by the time you start filming. So I try to keep them. They're a blueprint, like everything else, so that by the time we get to set, there's still something to play with there.
Yeah. If a script is picked up by a studio or producer, how much creative control can a first-time writer, director realistically expect to have? And how can they protect their vision? Would they need to compromise much?
They're different depending on what you've got. I guess the first and most often one of those would be as a writer. And in which case, if it's picked up, you'd have little to no control at that point. Once you sell that, it's theirs. They can do with it what they like. They don't have to consult. You don't have to do anything unless it's part of your deal. So those ones, little to no control. If you're a producer, you're the one doing it. You're producing, so that's entirely up to you. And if you're directing, it is literally your right to be able to do that, to have that creative freedom. So you may have to compromise based on the project. So if you envision this as a 5 mil project and you've got $1 million or $500,000 to play with or less, then obviously you're going to have to compromise to do that, but that's down to you to find ways to compromise to do that. You can't have this gigantic action sequence with helicopters and things like that. You have to find a way around it, but that's your prerogative. So again, it depends on what role we're talking about. The most common I say is writers, and unfortunately, once that's sold, that's theirs. So you don't have to compromise at that point. You have to let go completely and focus on your next project.
You're not going to say no to Quentin Tarantino wanting to direct your film that you wrote, are you?
No, probably not.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
I want to do it.
Yeah.
Don't you dare.
I think that'd be a difficult one, especially if you put a lot of time into something, into a script that you're planning on directing, and then someone were to come in. That would be hard to say. Oh, actually, no, you're right. I'll step back from this. That would be hard, but yeah, depends how much is on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how stubborn you are.
I'm quite stubborn.
Around your ideas.
So,
Yeah. What do you look for in an audition?
It depends on what the role is. You go into an audition looking for something, and that can be so many different things. It could be a look. It could be an approach to a role. It doesn't even need to be the right approach. It's just being able to identify, okay, they get where we're going. This it might not be what you want right there and then. You're also looking to make sure that they can take direction. That's a key thing. There's so many things. It's not like a one size fits all. It depends what the role is and what you're looking for out of it. There's so many different things. But for me, probably the most important thing is, can they bring what I'm looking for, whatever that may be, either physically, emotionally, creatively, or whatever, and can they take direction? Because that ability to be directed is something that is used less and less nowadays, especially with taped auditions and things like that, and Zooms as well. It's almost impossible with those to really judge if someone can take direction.
Do you find yourself being kind of like making a decision on an actor based on who they are as a person as well? So if you like them as a person, Do you think that would have an effect on if you cast someone?
Obviously, you know that you're going to be working with people for extended periods of times. You would like to have people that you can work with and get on with, but there's been many instances where you have to make that a secondary thing. Really, it's about the role. It's about making that character into a person. If they're the best person to do that and they're a dick, then that's just the way it is. I've worked with people like that at low level and at the highest level, where it's just like, yeah, okay, they're a dick, but they're the best dick for the role.
I think I know the answer to this one, but have you ever rewritten a role after meeting an actor?
Yes, I think, again, it's a blueprint. I've got an idea in my head of this is what I want this character to be like, but then you have an actor that come in, will do something different or be different a little bit or change it up somehow. You think, oh, that's better. So go with it. If it's better, then great. Yeah, so I'm not Shakespeare. I'm in no position to go, no. That's not how I wrote my most perfect words. Do it this way or don't do it at all. That's not me. And I don't think there's many people alive that have the right to say that. So if they can come in and bring something more to it, absolutely it's open to it. And that can be some changes to dialogue on set. That can be some more substantial changes. And at times, rewrites before we even start filming. I think once you've got it in your mind as to who it's going to be, you can then tailor it and rewrite it more for that person. But yeah, I think it is, ultimately you are embodying this person within an actor. Once you know who that's going to be, you have to chop it and change it a little bit because each person will bring something else. It's not just come in and slip these shoes on and you're this character. It's about everything they bring.
What advice would you give to actors auditioning for you?
I guess that's a two-part really in terms of whether it's a self-tape or an in-person audition. If it's a self-tape, give me options. Give me 2 options. Don't be afraid with the second option to do something completely out of the box. If nothing else, it might make me laugh, and that in itself makes it memorable. Standing out, especially with self-tapes, because there are so many that the casting director will weed through first before it even gets to me, and I've got to go through. Something that makes you memorable there is quite often going to stick. So give me options is what I'd say for self-tapes. Do one as close as you can imagine to what's presented to you, and then do one just another way. Go out of the box for that one. And then if it's an in-person audition, just try not to overthink it, because a lot of actors then work themselves up and can come into an audition tense and not give themselves. I know so many actors that I've spoken to after auditions that are just like disappointed. I got myself worked up, or it wasn't what I wanted, and they wish they could have a second go. So just don't overthink it. You've done your prep at home. The journey in, just kind of let it be what it's going to be. Come in, shake it all off. I usually have a little bit of conversation to try and make them feel a little bit relaxed at first. I tend not to give direction on a first audition. Let them do what they want to do, and then if they need direction, then I'll give some.
How do you make tough budget cuts without hurting the story?
You don't.
It's not possible.
No, and that's where it's as a director producer, that's hard to do, because you've got to be completely bipolar in that sense, in that you take something that you've got and that you really want, and you know it's going to cost this amount, but you've got the producer side of you that you can argue with to the end of the day. But really, if you've only got a certain amount of money for something, that's it. So you've got to find a way to try and make that work, really adapt it. If you can't, you've either got to adapt it or cut it.
What is the best way to handle last minute setbacks?
I think it depends what the setback is, but it's just a case of just take it for what it is. Try not to overstress, and just try and deal with it there and then.
What's the most stressful day you've had on a shoot?
I think the more stressful days are the days before a shoot, when you're in late stages of prep, when you've got, there's nothing more stressful for me than sitting at a table of investors. That's the worst thing in the world. I hate that. Being on set, yeah, it can be stressful, but I'm positive enough that I'm grateful to be able to do that. So even though you can be like up against the time, up against the weather, still we get paid to do this. Like there's only so stressed you can be, really.
What do you wish new producers understood about directing?
That it's not as easy as they think. That we don't just ask for things or insist upon things just because we're creative darlings. It's not. It's that you as a producer have tasked us with this project to be able to make it in a certain way. To then clip our wings and be like, yeah, but okay, you can only have this or you can only do that. That's not actually helpful at all, because you want the best film that's going to sell well, do well, be well received, but then you want to prevent us from doing anything to achieve that. That's the most ridiculous thing in the world. You know, you wouldn't say you want someone to build a house in a particular way, but say, actually, I'm going to restrict the number of bricks you can use, or you can't use the colour that I want you to paint it. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, you give us that freedom to be able to do what you want us to do. If it's not what you want us to do, that's a film is a producer's product, not a director's. So, you know, it's our job as directors to achieve what the producer ultimately wants from their picture.
What's the most effective way for an emerging filmmaker to connect with producers or potential collaborators to work on movies together?
Networking, I think, is the only way, really, in that if you've got something, a product, a script, or anything at all, people have to know about it. And it's not just going to find its own audience. You have to be able to talk to people. And it's through connections. So networking, talking to people. Nobody is going to blow the horn for your project as much as you. Nobody's going to support it in the way that you will. So you have to be the one to talk about it, to champion it to other people, make other people excited. And with any luck, they'll tell people that if they're excited about it, and it will kind of, you know, permeate through things that way. And then hopefully you'll find someone, because it's a reasonably small industry, that will connect you to someone that would be helpful. That's how it worked for me in the past. That's how it worked for pretty much everyone I've ever known. It's about finding people that believe in you or your vision or your project or your script, whatever it is, something that they like and are prepared to say, you know, I've heard of this guy's got this other thing, and just talk about it. So making sure that you talk to people about your project, your idea, your story is the best way to get it out there.
I'd quite like to do the quick fire fun questions with you now. Quick answers.
Right, go on then.
Nice and snappy.
Okay.
Yeah? Are you ready?
Ready.
Coffee or tea on set, and how do you take it?
Coffee. I have chicory coffee called Camp on set. I have it very, very sweet with way too many sugars than I need. And I pretty much live on that on set.
One film you wish you directed?
The Elephant Man.
Digital or film?
Film.
One actor you'd love to work with?
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
It's impossible to not do it. I did it in my head.
One thing you never do on set?
Sleep.
So it could be many things, couldn't it, that are inappropriate to do on a set?
I've probably done most of them. Sleeping is the only one I could think of.
Most underrated director ever?
That's hard.
That is a difficult question, let's be honest.
If it was the other way around, the most overrated director, I could probably name many, but underrated director...
Give me the most overrated director. You don't want to say now, do you?
I can't because I know him.
Okay, let's go back with underrated.
Yeah.
So we're not offending anyone.
Danny Boyle. I go with Danny Boyle.
Underrated.
He's one of my favourite directors ever, and I do think in terms of greatest directors lists, he would probably be near the top, but not as high as he should be.
Favourite film of all time?
It's a Wonderful Life.
One word to describe your directing style?
Free.
Like that.
I don't know if it's accurate.
Even sounded free when you said free.
Yeah, I don't know if it's accurate.
The last film that made you emotional?
I watched a documentary last night, the John Candy documentary, I Like Me, and I was emotional all the way through it. It started, I pressed play and I was emotional.
Oh.
So yeah.
Oh.
I know, it was awful.
Tissues?
I didn't have tissues. Tears just
just
came out. I was like a sad
cascading
clown.
down your cheeks.
Yeah, I was.
Oh.
I just needed a hug.
Yeah.
I didn't get one.
Probably didn't get one either. What's one myth about directing that you want to debunk?
That it's fun and easy. It can be fun. And in a perfect world, you have easier days when it's all going well and perfectly. But it's not. There is a lot of hard work. There's so much prep.
What scares you the most as a filmmaker?
Failure.
If you couldn't direct, what would you do?
Right.
Good answer.
It's the only two things I can do.
Yeah, it's the other thing. Yeah. How do you switch off after a long shoot day?
I don't. My general thing after I get back from a day is I will go back to the room or hotel or wherever, and I'll review the previous day's rushes. I'll go through them, make sure everything's fine, because at least then we know everything's good. Like where we're at, we don't need to reshoot those. And really, then I'll go through the next day's shot list, storyboards, because the only way I'd be able to sleep that night at all is knowing that I've done everything I can.
Okay, finally, Sophie Carl's got a very important question for you. Why is your cat called Larry?
Larry was because... And the reason this question came about was because when I put a post up asking for any questions, I said even why my cat is called Larry, and Sophie was the first one who straight away put, why is your cat Larry?
Yeah.
Larry has 4 names. His name is Larry Willard Salem Fallaize. And we couldn't decide which of the first 3 we were going to call him, so Larry won because it was the one that I chose.
Cat.